Successful seed saving from our garden plants involves a number of different processes. The seed must be collected at the right time of the year. It then needs to be cleaned or separated from any adjoining plant material. And then, most importantly, it needs to be stored in the right way. It's important to note that seeds collected from hybrid plants usually aren't worth saving, as their results are usually not true to type. In other words, the offspring of hybrid plants usually don't look anything or taste anything like their parents. So it's important to know what we're collecting our seed from. Seed is usually collected in late summer or fall whenever the fruits or vegetables have matured and those seeds have fully developed. And in the case of flowers, whenever the flowers have stopped blooming and started to go to seed. Now the seed, when we collect it from our fruits and vegetables, is usually darker in color, they are well filled out, and they're somewhat firm or plump. Right here I've got a bean pod, and you can see the beans in here have colored up really well. They're really dark color, they're not white, they are plump or well filled out, and they're ready to collect. This is a hyacinth bean, but the characteristics are true for other beans, peas, and our other legumes as well. As far as cleaning these seeds, there's really nothing to it. They just kind of pop right out of the pod, so there's not any other plant material to worry about cleaning these. We'll just dry them for a little while, and then they'll be ready to be stored. Now peppers also must be ripe before we collect the seed from their fruits. If you have any green bell peppers that you want to collect seed from, it's a good idea to let those continue to ripen. Let them go ahead and turn red or orange or purple or whatever color they're going to end up being. So those seeds will be fully developed. Well, I'm going to collect a little bit of seed from this little tricolor pepper here in our pepper garden. And if we had some really hot peppers, I would definitely be wearing some rubber gloves so I didn't get that capsaicin on my fingers and cause some burning sensation. Well, I'm just going to cut into the pepper here, and the seeds aren't completely white. They are starting to show a little bit of a darker color, and we'll just kind of scrape these into this plastic picnic plate, disposable plate. Now peppers have perfect flowers. That means they have both male and female parts, and they can pollinate themselves. If you're worried about your peppers cross-pollinating and not getting true to type peppers the next year, you could do some isolation. That means planting the peppers where there are no other peppers within 500 feet. And that could be a little bit hard to do. Another option would be to put some type of screen or mesh barrier over the plants, keep any insects from doing any of that cross-pollination. But even though we have several different types of peppers growing around these, we'll get plenty of the peppers that are true to type because they are self-pollinating. Well, we'll set these in the plate here. We'll take them somewhere where they're not out in direct sunlight, and we'll let these seed dry. And we'll let them dry to a point to where when you can take one of the pepper seeds and actually fold it in half and it snaps. That's how dry we want these pepper seed to be. So we need to let them dry out quite a bit right now. They're a little bit slippery. But if you fold one in half and it only bends and it doesn't snap, then we'll know it still contains too much moisture and they'll need to dry a little bit longer. Collecting the seed from tomatoes is done once the tomato reaches the edible state or the ripe stage of the fruit. And there are really a couple of different ways we can process the seeds for the tomatoes. If you're only going to collect a few seeds, we can take just, again, a plastic disposable plate or even a sheet of wax paper or something like that, and just squeeze out some of the pulp and seed onto the plate like this, and we'll just kind of spread that out, all that pulp and seed, and we'll just set this somewhere inside out of the light, and we'll let it dry for about 2 weeks. And after those 2 weeks are up, we'll come out and kind of break away all of that pulp and any of that other plant material, wash those up, and set those to dry a little bit more, and they'll be ready to package up. The other way of processing tomato seed is the fermentation process. And this is something that tomatoes go through in a natural situation. They will drop from the plant when they are ripe, or even a little overripe sometimes, and they will start to ferment and decompose a little bit. And what this process does, it helps the seed become prepared for the germination process. During the fermentation, also, the little things like bacteria and other little harmful organisms are actually killed. The fermentation process actually kills some of those little bad organisms. We're just going to squeeze all this pulp and seed into this little container here. We'll do a few other things to it. The tomato seed is actually encased in a little gelatinous sac. If you've ever tried to grab a tomato seed, you know how slippery they are. But that little gelatinous sac contains chemicals that inhibit the seed from germinating. And during the fermentation process, that gelatinous sac will disintegrate or decompose, and the seed will be ready to germinate. Next step we need to do is to just take a little bit of water, just kind of fill up this bowl until it covers up all of that material. And we're ready to just set that up somewhere and let it start the fermentation process. After about a day or two, we'll start to get some gray mold that will grow across the surface of this water. Then in about 7 to 5 days, once that mold has completely covered the surface of the water, we'll know that the fermentation process is finished. We can then take this, dump it into a strainer, add some water, wash away all of that mold, all of that extra pulp and other little pieces of plant fragments. Right here you can see sort of smelly tomato that we kind of let do its own natural fermentation. You can see that gray mold starting to grow on the tomato. But that's what we want to happen. That's natural. That helps prepare that seed for germination the next year. Now when you set this up somewhere, you want to make sure you put it where it won't get knocked over or children won't bump into it, because it will start to smell really bad. But once those seeds have been put through the strainer or added water to, decanted, and all the bad seed kind of floated away, and you've got those good seed on the bottom, we'll continue to kind of wash those up a little bit. We'll then just dump them in another one of our plates and let them dry, and then they'll be ready to store. Now, if you're going to be doing a lot of seed saving from fruits and vegetables, a really good resource is this book by Suzanne Ashworth. It's called Seed to Seed, and it has just a lot of information on the process that you need to go through to save a lot of our vegetable and fruit seeds. She gives a lot of detail on when the seeds are ready to collect and all the different things that we need to do to each different species of several of these fruits and vegetables. Fall is a good time of the year to collect seed of a lot of our flowering plants and also some of our native wildflowers. And again, it's very important that the seed be cleaned the right way. Now, right here is a cultivated Siberian iris, and we can definitely tell that these are ready to have their seed collected because the capsules have split open. And these seed are pretty easy to collect, and they'll just kind of fall out there. Now you can see the big seeds, and then you can also see a lot of the little fragments or other little plant parts. This is what we're talking about when we need to clean away those seeds. But there are also other seeds that can cause us some problems because they have a lot of the little fragments or plant debris. This is one of our native penstemons, the Arkansas penstemon. You can see those seeds kind of falling out of those capsules as they open up. But there's still a lot of very, very small debris or little plant fragments mixed in with the seeds. Now, last week on our program, Steve Biebrick told us about the term winnowing, and that's the process of where you use air or some kind of fan or just the wind to blow away or drive away the chaff or these little bits of plant material. Now, the reason we want to get rid of these little bits of plant material is because mold can start growing on them while they're stored. But in the winnowing process, It takes a little bit of skill, but you can kind of roll them around in bowls or things like that, and just with your breath, just lightly blow away that little bit of debris. There are some different screens and things like that you could use if you wanted to try to separate the seed from the fragments in that way. But some of the smaller seed are really some of the more difficult to get clean because they're going to be so light, it's going to be hard to blow those away. Right here we have some morning glory seed, and we're just going to kind of crush these up. And you can see this type of seed is larger. The plant fragments are going to be a lot lighter, so it's going to be a lot easier to kind of separate those from that other little bit of debris. But again, it is very important. Well, once we've got our seed completely cleaned, we've got all that other plant debris gone from the seed, we can then package them up, and then we're ready to store them. And as I mentioned earlier, the storing process is the most important process. We have to remember that seeds are living organisms, and we need to give them the best environment possible so they will last a long time in storage. Now, the two greatest enemies of stored seed are high moisture and high temperature. The moisture in the air as humidity is important because seeds can absorb that moisture out of the air, and a lot of humidity will allow for the growth of different little microorganisms that can cause us some problems. The higher the temperature, the more moisture the seeds will absorb out of the air. That will increase their respiration, and once that's going on, their lifespan will be decreased. In other words, the seeds are burning up all their stored reserves, and they're not going to have any left over to germinate and then grow. Well, the best conditions we can put our seed in to store them is somewhere cool and somewhere dry. Now, the best setup for this would be to put seeds in an airtight container and put them in our refrigerator. Now, some of the containers you could use would be things like baby food jars or canning jars. Now, these have a type of seal, little plastic or rubber type seal in the top that will close off that air, and they'll be pretty much airtight. Just get those really tight on there. I like these small baby food jars because they're about the right size for a single species of seed. But the canning jars do work very well, and that's primarily because of the sealable lid. Seals out the air, keeps that humidity away from those seeds. Well, one method that I really like to use, what I use at home to store my seed, is just to take a rectangular Tupperware or plastic container and fill the bottom with these silica gel granules. And I'll just pour these into about a depth of ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. This is the same material that sometimes you see when you buy a new pair of shoes and it has that little package in there that says "do not eat." This is pretty much the same material. It's used a lot for drying flowers as well. In fact, that's where you can get these. Go to some type of craft store, and they will usually have these silica gel granules. And then I just lay my little envelopes of seed on top of those and keep those in the refrigerator. You can see I've made some of these envelopes out of just an ordinary sheet of paper. But the crystals will absorb the moisture out of the air, and you can see the blue color in a few of the crystals. Those are actually the indicator crystals in the silica. Now, those will either turn pink, or in some cases they will just fade to white as they absorb moisture. So if you check your seeds periodically and the blue color is completely gone, you'll know that they've soaked up all the moisture that they can hold. And then it's important to dry them out, and that way you can just remove the seed packets and dump these into like a cookie sheet, put them in the oven at about 200 degrees, and it won't be too much longer before they'll be dried out and ready to use again, ready to soak up some more of that moisture. But again, keep the lid on this, and we put that in the refrigerator. Well, different seed will store for different amounts of time. Things like hollyhocks, carnations, and the cucurbits, like our pumpkins, cucumbers, squash, and things like that, can live for quite a while in really good stored conditions, up to 5 years or longer. But on the other hand, things like verbena, lantana, corn, and onion seed usually only last for about a year, even in really good stored conditions. Well, keeping your seeds in the refrigerator is also a good idea because it helps them to meet that stratification process, or that cold chilling. And in doing this, it kind of makes them think they're out in the cold in nature and enables the seeds to germinate the next year.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.